Amazing things can happen when developers understand the desires and wants of their community and then deliver. Now, space games don't always get an easy ride, and some fade into obscurity way too early. Yet that is far from the case with EVE Online, the 20-year-old behemoth that is raking in $50 million a year with a constant and ongoing average of 28,000 concurrent players. EVE Online then, if nothing else, proves the old adage that there is immense hunger for online persistent space games. It also doubles down on the belief that yes, developers need to deliver quality updates, a truth we see with No Man's Sky, X4 and other such games. So with all that in mind, it's no surprise that CCP have massive plans for EVE Online in 2024, and this juggernaut of a game is showing no signs of slowing down. Of course, that's not to say that the game hasn't had its fair share of problems. There have been many of those, including a botched Space Legs update that was very poorly received by the community at large. The fact is, though, that CCP persevered after these setbacks and continued to improve upon the game in very big ways. The latest development letter then from the game's director talks about all of this, understands it very well, and seems to be saying that the trick is really focusing on player engagement. In other words, understanding what makes the game's community tick and then expanded upon that and delivering more content for this. This was very much the case then with 2023. In fact, if we go back a little bit further to 2022, EVE Online and CCP moved over to a new concept of expansions. Well, I say new, this is something they moved to in 2022, and for those of you who played EVE Online back in the day, you'll probably remember they did expansions many years ago, but they since moved away from it, but recently decided to move back to them. Now, these expansions are large, self-contained updates that heavily expand upon very key aspects of the game. In 2023, there was 3 of these. The first was called Uprising, this was followed by Viridian, and then that was followed by Havoc. Now, Uprising was an expansion that revamped the factional warfare system. Remember that EVE Online is all about, well, cooperative play and player versus player. It's a massive galaxy that really has the essential focus, the narrative really, as being driven by the players. But there is a lot of background lore going into all of this as well, as you'll see with some of the video clips on the screen. So yeah, the Uprising expansion introduced new systems to help and allow players to further refine their ability to capture systems. Systems being star systems, of course. Now, Viridian, this features an introduction of a brand new ship called the Lancer Dreadnoughts, and these are armed with area of effect weapons. The update also includes a series of visual upgrades and enhancements to the daily gameplay experience, such as missions. Now, finally, Havoc came out towards the end of the year. This coincided with the playtest of Vanguard, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Havoc aligned players with the pirate factions, incorporating new gameplay elements like the ice refinery heists, the air daily goals, and pirate insurgencies, alongside the introduction of new ships from the Angel Cartel and the Geristus. So CCP are very keen on emphasizing that each of these expansions are aimed at deepening player engagement with the game. The new content and systems really do encourage collaboration, strategy, and community building within the universe of New Eden itself. Now, personally, I wouldn't describe myself as a long-time EVE Online player, but I did start the game back in 2003 when it originally released. I've since returned to the game many times over the decades for prolonged periods of time, and I've seen the whole community and the game itself go through many different phases and many different transitions. And I've got to say, just looking at the way things are at the moment, this seems to be a new era for EVE Online, one of the better eras in fact, and it really all stems down to the fact that yes, CCP are really focusing in on that player engagement. And yes, it does seem to be a bit of a PR word and a bit of a marketing spin, but really, the facts do speak for themselves. The most recent report from Pearl Abyss, the owners of CCP, recently published financial information, and they showed that in the second quarter of 2023 that EVE Online saw a 14% increase in revenue. That took the game to around about 15 million in revenue for that quarter. In fact, you can see that from the chart right here, and this comes directly from the Pearl Abyss presentation, that between the middle of 2022 and the middle of 2023, EVE Online generated over $50 million in revenue. Now, as a comparison for context here, it's known from Hello Games financial reports that were released relatively recently, a few months back, that Hello Games generated roughly £40 million in 2022. So yeah, very, very comparable to what we're seeing here with EVE Online. Meanwhile, of course, Star Citizen is the big heavy hitter here. Star Citizen generated over $100 million in fact, in 2022. But just think of all the big ship sales and all the marketing that really has to go into promoting Star Citizen for it to achieve that. So yeah, EVE Online and No Man's Sky doing tremendously well here. In terms of player numbers for EVE Online, these are very, very easy to get. All of these statistics are publicly available, and we can see them published on the EVE Offline website. Over the last 12 months, the game had an average period number of players. This is an ongoing concurrent number of players of 28,000 players. Now keep in mind that's not the total number of players per day, that's just the average number of players that are there at any given moment. And this peaked at 40,000 players in November. In short, these are very good numbers and put EVE Online in the company of games like 7 Days to Die and Dead by Daylight, at least according to Steam charts. These are the 37th and 40th most played game on Steam, respectively. Now, in terms of what CCP have planned for 2024, well, it's essentially more of the same. CCP say they're heavily focused on the 3 key aspects, that is, strong organisations, the future of war, and identity and agency. More specifically, reading directly from their developer's note, they say those themes support and drive our creative vision, the ultimate science fiction experience. And with its focus on conflict, identity and community, the 2 expansions coming in 2024 will see a shift of focus towards null security space and increasing the rich opportunities presented to Capsuleers there. Further into the post, they say that 2024 we will expand the scope and impact of corporation projects. And corporation projects, by the way, are an ability for corporations, in other words guilds, to set goals and objectives for their members and players. It really is a neat functionality that dramatically adds to the overall sandbox nature of the game. So yeah, to continue with what they're saying, they said they're going to expand the scope and impact of corporation projects with exciting improvements such as enabling corporations to create freelance tasks for non-members, which will become an essential avenue for recruitment and a great way for Capsuleers to build their confidence or simply earn some ISK. So in other words, players of corporations themselves will be able to set and create contracts for other players, essentially creating player-driven missions. So yeah, again, this is all very much focused on the players. So one thing that's very clear is that CCP are all about delivering far more than just a few brand new assets into the game and relying on previously used gameplay mechanics to bolster these assets. Instead, they're constantly reworking and refining existing gameplay mechanics and then adding to these to improve the overall experience. And in my personal opinion, this is really what divides up and separates a quality live service experience from a mundane and dull one. Elsewhere, CCP talk about their upcoming major expansion to EVE Online and its massive new component. This is the first-person shooter mode. There's a quick roadmap on the screen right here, and there's going to be a playtest on this one very, very soon. So I'm not going to talk about this one too much in this particular video. We're going to revisit this subject when that playtest becomes available, so do keep an eye out for that video. Meanwhile, check out the other videos on the screen right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.